Mark,
Charlie.
tell us the story of the Rastafari.
Well, Charlie, again, I'm not a historian, and I apologize in advance for any errors that I may make. My understanding is that in the 20s and 30s, there were a lot of black people in the Western Hemisphere who were disaffected and unhappy about the way in which their race was treated, perceived, self-perception issues and so on, arising out of the colonial experience coming from slavery days. We had Marcus Garvey, who was a Jamaican, and was another national hero of Jamaica, in fact the first national hero, who built multinational movement, Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, with followers in the United States, a big following as part of, I think, the Harlem Renaissance. And his teachings resonated in Jamaica with grassroots people as well. And then he had predicted in his teachings that a king would come from Africa for black people. And shortly after that, in the 1930s, Haile Selassie was crowned in Ethiopia, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, Rastafari. And that was seen by persons in Jamaica as a fulfillment of prophecy. And a man called Leonard Howell became the leader of a group of persons who saw this as a very significant historic moment for black people. He formed a commune in a place called Pinnacle in Jamaica, which is a beautiful hill with a tremendous view of much of that part of Jamaica. And they lived there. And ganja was part of the spiritual practices of that group, as well as, belief in repatriation to Africa and their right to return to the motherland. From day one, the British colonial powers were very nervous and skeptical about this group because of their pride in their race and their unique and indigenous approach towards spiritual matters and their own and lifestyle issues. And they suffered many raids, using ganja often as a pretext for raiding their community at Pinnacle and elsewhere, because it spread, and it was in the cities of Kingston at the time and elsewhere. There were communities with large bodies of Rastas, and the country as a whole was indoctrinated to treat them as kind of wild, dangerous people. And children would be afraid of the locksman because they grew their locks, which is a Nazarene vow from the Bible. So, in fact, their oppression reached the point where in, I think, 1962 or 3 or thereabouts, there was a community near Montego Bay in a place called Coral Gardens. And there was an incident at a gas station where the gas station was burnt down. I think the proprietor was killed. And the government of the day sent in the security forces to basically mash down the Rasta people there. And many were killed, beaten up, they were trimmed mandatorily. It was an atrocity that really took place at Coral Gardens. And in fact, that's an incident for which the Rasta community is seeking an apology and reparations up to today, which has not really happened thus far. And then the ganja laws in that same era of the 60s became very oppressive, where there was a mandatory sentence of a 1.5 years for a spliff. And in fact, in 1972, when there was a change of government which ushered in a new era of social consciousness in the country and social change, led by Michael Manley, one of the first things he did was to eliminate that mandatory sentencing for ganja. But persons like Bonnie Whaler, one of the original trio of the Whalers, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bonnie Whaler, he was imprisoned for ganja in the 60s under that law, I believe. The hostility between the police as the forces of the state and Rastafari, which really sees the state as the embodiment of Babylon and an iniquitous system that enslaved black people, took them to the New World away from their home, and that has continued over the years. And the Rastas have evolved into different mansions, different groups with slightly different approaches to the liberty, the way they live, and so on. And they have contributed tremendously to Jamaica, because it is the Rasta culture that has spawned reggae music out of Jamaica popular music through the pioneering work of the Wailers, and then Bob Marley himself, Peter Tosh himself, and then Burning Spear and others who have come through and given Jamaica a worldwide reputation as a place for popular music and for a lifestyle and culture that goes with it, which people find liberating and people find attractive. They're eschewing materialism and embracing love and the equality of all people and so on. So this is a very powerful concept that has come out of Rastafari, which Jamaica has benefited from. It's really put Jamaica on the map in some respects. And I think the time has come for Jamaica to acknowledge that and to remove some of the oppressive elements of our laws that have been used over the years to harass Rasta people and to deny them equality under the law. So that is what we're seeking to do now. And the legislation that we're coming with is going to acknowledge the right of Rasta people to use marijuana as their sacrament, so that they should not fall foul of the law for worshipping God, Jah, in the way that they see fit.
It sounds like the time has come for an apology for Coral Gardens.
I think so.
Amazing that it hasn't.
It hasn't happened, yes. I think you're right. It's an interesting thing. You know, the politics of it is a bit odd because the party that was in power at the time was not the party that's in power now.
No, it was not your party.
No. And in fact, prior to that, our party had been in power. And Norman Manley, who is another national hero and was really the conceptualizer of Jamaica as an independent state coming out of colonial rule, he had facilitated a visit to Ethiopia by the Rastas, which resulted in Selassie, His Majesty, providing land in Ethiopia for the Rastas to come to if they wished, Shashamani, and eventually led to the visit of His Imperial Majesty to Jamaica in the mid-60s, which was a tremendous event. And there was a huge crowd at the airport in Kingston to meet him at the time. In a sense, the apology, I think, although it's a unitary state and it was the government of the day that did it and the government of today could make the apology, but I think it's an apology that the other side should acknowledge and join in. And they haven't yet shown any inclination to do so. And in terms of reparations, that's a difficult concept, because the issues of how you would quantify it and who would benefit from it, that would have to be thought through. And I'm not in a position to give any such commitment on behalf of the government. That would be a decision of cabinet. But the case won't go away, and I think it's something that needs to be reconciled with and dealt with.